welcome back to the program. I'm Roby Brock. We are celebrating Mother's Day, and I cannot think of two mothers that I would rather have on the show than Senator Missy Irvin, Senator Joyce Elliott. Happy Mother's Day to both of you, first of all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
I asked you all to come here so that we could talk specifically about women's issues, maybe mothers' issues, daughters' issues, grandmothers' issues.
Yes.
All in all. So let's begin with what happened in this last legislative session that was positive for women. And let's begin with the maternity leave bill, and I will let Senator Irvin take the lead on that.
Yeah, a very exciting bill that we were able to pass this session and really take a huge step, not just for our state, but I think for the country. We passed a bill for our state employees for them to be able to take maternity leave, and for 4 weeks of maternity leave. And the best part about it was through our work with the Department of Finance and Administration and through our work with the different state agencies, we were able to combine all the different catastrophic leave banks into one leave bank. And when we did that, we had over 1.5 million hours accumulated already in that catastrophic leave bank. So we allowed for maternity purposes to be used to tap into that leave bank, which means that we were able to provide this maternity leave, 4 weeks of paid maternity leave without a single cost to the taxpayers.
Wow, Senator Elliott, you were working a champion on that legislation as well. So
yes.
How long has this been in the works?
Oh boy, I remember maybe last session, a session before last, there was a bill that was introduced that was not successful. Right. I think that was Warwick Sabin that introduced that bill, maybe then? Clark Tucker.
And I was his citizen.
Yeah, and so it's been in the works for a while, and it's been talked about for quite a while, because we know, since we're talking Mother's Day, so often women suffer by having this precondition called a woman, and happen to be the one who have the babies. So, so they're just built into that. You know, there are all kind of issues with that, with their careers, for example, whether or not they get to advance, whether or not, for example, they even get to run for office at an early age, like so many other guys do.
Right.
Yeah.
How does it work with your male colleagues on an issue like this? I mean, obviously you had a lot of vote for it, and there are some that have been supportive as co-sponsors for it. Did any resistance?
None whatsoever. I was so excited too, because not just our male colleagues in the legislature, but also our male colleagues and peers that we work with that are state employees as well. They donated time to that leave bank for their female peers and colleagues in their state agencies so that their colleague could take maternity leave. And so they actually were donating their time so that she could take maternity leave. So we had such a great response to it from not only our male colleagues in the Senate and the legislature and the House, but also throughout state agencies. It was a very positive moment. I got a picture of our first baby. It was so exciting. One of the state employees, she delivered right after that. We put an emergency clause on the bill so that we could cover that birth and that pregnancy for that mother. So I was able to get that picture, just a beautiful baby boy. And so it's just proud. I mean, I'm really proud of our state.
You see the results.
Really proud of our state.
Yeah, we see the results, and you know, and we see where we can go with it as well. Because I think one of the reasons it was so well received is that it ended up not costing anything. Yeah. And I wanted to be sure we're thinking about down the road, maybe when all of these hours are not available, because I don't think anybody is against the idea. It's just about making it a priority for funding it. But even more so, I think it's important for women, for people like you who are the dads, for you to be covered too, so that maybe I can make a decision if dad's going to be home and has leave, I can get back to my career in a quicker fashion. Because I think I think sometimes women are perceived so much as being the caretaker that we forget about the other implications. And I think
I know a lot of female breadwinner families.
Right,
yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah. And it sells you guys short too.
And it's a good start.
Let's talk about another piece of legislation that affected state procurement law here to basically include women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, as well as minority-owned businesses. Give me kind of the rough sketch of what you guys accomplished on that piece of legislation.
Well, as you just indicated, there's a lot of women who are the breadwinners of their families. In fact, well over half of the households in Arkansas and in the country are headed by women. And at the state level, I've sat on the review committee for a number of years and have seen those contracts coming through that committee. And there are a lot of people in this state who are millionaires because of state contracts. Most of them are men. And so what we know is that we tend to operate as we are used to. So that leaves out, for the most part, minorities and women. And women in Arkansas are not a part of the definition of minority. Right. So what this bill does is includes women in that group, so that we're more intentional about women having the opportunity to have access for some of those contracts. And it also carves out a specific 5%, so that the women's group is not diluting altogether the group that has the minorities in it and veterans in it.
Devil's advocate, some people call that a quota system.
Yeah, they do.
And I'm sure that came up in some of the debates.
It did.
Yes. It did, but Representative Michelle Gray ran the bill in the House, and then I ran the bill in the Senate. And again, we had great bipartisan support for the bill, and male and female support for the bill too, because we kind of put it all together with the veterans, the minority, and the women, and really just saying it's a priority to our state. And I think what Senator Elliott said was absolutely spot on. There are so many women entrepreneurs, there are women business owners, and so we're moving in that direction, and we want to be able to be a state to be leading on these issues. And I think that's what we did with these particularly two big pieces of legislation for women's issues.
All right, in the interest of time, where is there work still to be done? I'll give each of you a time to say where your focus in the future is going to be. Senator Irvin.
One of the things that Senator Elliott and I worked so closely on was human trafficking, and we did that, and it was just an incredible effort that we did. But there's an uptick right now, and we've had recently a couple of victims from Arkansas that have been victims of human trafficking. And I will tell you, we ran a bill this past session to allow for the definition to be in state code for DCFS, Division of Children and Family Services, so that somebody can call the child abuse hotline and report human trafficking. Before this bill passed this session, they couldn't take that call, they couldn't follow up on it, but because the nature of that crime is cyber-oriented, crimes against children division in the state police and cyber, we're going to have to readdress that, look at those recommendations from the task force that we put together from our legislation, and really make sure that they are funded and have the resources available to really investigate and tackle this crime, because it is massive and we're just scratching the surface.
Senator Elliott, what are you going to focus on?
Well, I really have economics on my mind, you know, on this Mother's Day, but Representative Fred Love introduced a bill to require wage equity to become the law, that if you're a woman, you get paid, you know, same as a man doing the same or very similar jobs. And he did a lot of work on that bill, and many people worked on it with him, but we were not able to even get it out of committee. I think this is a big deal for all those women we talked about who are head of households, or anybody who's doing equitable jobs. And it's kind of bothersome, kind of is an understatement. It's bothersome that we're even having this conversation. But I think that's something that we absolutely have to get our minds around and thinking about, as Senator Irvin and I are both on the tax committee, that we're the task force. I think one of the things we need to think about is looking at, particularly for women, how are they treated in the tax code, because generally we're treated as a spouse. And we need to think about, for example, the earned income tax credit, because with so many of these women who are heading households, they really aren't making enough. That maybe that equity issue there as well. They're not making enough that they even have to pay taxes, and that bothers some people. But in a lot of states, we know that they have incorporated the earned income tax credit, because that's been shown to be one of the major ways for people to rise out of poverty.
Well, I'm glad y'all have something to keep yourselves busy in the future.
There's a lot of work in front of us, I'm sure.
Senator Joyce Elliott, Senator Missy Irvin,
Thank
again,
you so
happy
much.
Mother's Day.
Thank you.
And
Thank
happy
you for
Mother's
being
Day,
here.
Mom.
Yes, indeed.
All right, thanks for being here.
All righty.
We'll be back with more right after this.